A lot of people see finance as a burden rather than a boost. And it's really you're helping people be more proactive and forward thinking in that finance space, aren't you? So that they can gain that momentum.
Hello everyone, welcome to the next edition of Adventures in Networking.
Well, hello everyone, that's James West and I'm Kelly West. We're the co-founders of Only Networking, the business network for people who like people. Today, we're diving into some topics that affect almost every growing business. How do you fund your growth, manage your cash flow and explore international markets confidently? And we're joined by two brilliant guests today. They are our sponsors, Bibby Financial Services, a family-owned business that, like us, believes in building strong relationships and supporting entrepreneurs to grow. Alex Cooper is a foreign exchange expert and a familiar face to many in the Only community. He is a prolific networker and a huge advocate for supporting others. And then we've got Helena Warne. She's the business development manager in Invoice Finance. She is equally active in the networking space and brings a wealth of experience helping businesses unlock cash flow and take the next steps.
Beautifully introduced. Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to bring them both on stage as if by magic. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome
no, afternoon actually, isn't it? 12 o'clock.
We've just ticked over. So welcome. Good to have you both here. So we've got lots of questions for you. So without further ado, I'm going to plow into them. So for both of you, maybe if you go first, Alex, tell us a little bit about your background, specific how you got into working in business finance. That's what we'd like to know. And then the same question for you, Helena. Alex.
Sure. So I started in my financial services career 26 years ago. First years as a financial advisor, then progressing into becoming an IFA. 11 years on, I then moved into foreign exchange, into corporate foreign exchange with a couple of different businesses beforehand, and joined Bibby just over 4 years ago, January 2021. So I've been talking about money for 26 years. So I spent the last, like I say, 15 years in the foreign exchange space, helping SMEs throughout the UK, help them understand their foreign exchange exposure. And I know we'll delve into that a little bit more later.
Yes. Well, look, Alex, you've already got a fan. I'm going to bring this comment up on the screen. Rachel is already praising you. So
thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel, for your lovely comment about Alex. That is very kind. Helena, I don't know if I'm going to feel bad now if we don't have a comment for you. You're not as well known in our network, but tell us a bit about your background, please.
Thanks, James. Well, I'm exactly the same as Alex, actually, which I didn't realise, because I started in finance 26 years ago when I was 18, and I'm 44 now. I've done various roles in finance, working as a business development manager on sort of commercial loans, business banking, had quite a long career in Lloyds Bank and doing invoice finance for them as well. And more formally working for Bibby Financial Services in invoice finance. So yeah, a bit like Alex, well, exactly like Alex, 26 years in finance and the last 17 years in the commercial space. So working with businesses for any kind of commercial loans and invoice finance in that space for quite a few years, 8 years for invoice finance anyway.
Stay there. We'll stay with you to talk about the networking part of it, because we are a networking show supporting small businesses. What's your networking journey story, Helena? Give us a sense of that.
Well, we get referrals for invoice finance from a range of introducers. So a lot of finance professionals such as accountants, solicitors, finance brokers and things. So obviously networking is a key part of what I do to get referrals into Bibby Financial Services. So I attend things like breakfast meetings. There's a finance professionals evening that I attend in Cardiff, which is every month, which is full of accountants and solicitors, a perfect audience, to be honest, for who I want to network with. And also from a sort of networking point of view, Alex and I recently did the export show in Cardiff together, where we could talk to businesses about how we can help with export and things like that. And again, there was not only customers there, but potential introducers of business that are looking for us to help them with their financial needs. And also, more recently, only last week, I was at the construction show in Cardiff, which was a massive event in the Cardiff City Stadium, where, again, I got to speak to lots of finance brokers that perhaps I wasn't already connected with. that do, work with businesses that are looking for financial solutions. So it's huge in my role as a business development manager to network my particular area, which is South Wales.
It's great to see a company of your size still valuing the one-to-one connections, because they are important, aren't they, Helena? That, we need to talk to people. You don't outgrow that, perhaps, is the comment there.
No, definitely not. I mean, obviously in COVID times, it's not quite the same as sitting, trying to speak to an introducer on a video call. It's really important, I think, to be able to build rapport and to have that face-to-face coffee and to click with somebody, really, and for someone to get to know you, to want to do business with you. So, yeah, I'm glad we're out of having to do all networking, on video calls. At least we can do it face to face and get out there and have lunch and coffees with people and go to these events such as, the construction show and the export show. It's just great to be able to have a stand and have that presence and to get the brand awareness across as well, so that people know what Bibby Financial Services can offer.
Good stuff. Alex, what about you? Networking, big part of your career?
Huge. I think like only Bibby Financial Services in its entirety is fundamental base is partnerships, and with people. That's the important part here. Bibby has a significant network of, like Helena has explained, of introducers of all types: finance brokers, accountants, business consultants, and other individuals also. Is working in partnership to make sure we look after those clients. How I operate with them, that is very similar to my colleague, and it's very much, yes, I'm sort of, if it involves usually food and a drink, I'm going to attend the networking event, quite frankly, and obviously only somewhat different to that, but being a remote networking environment. So, but no, you probably gathered I do like to talk. So engaging with fellow professionals and all types of people and understanding them and how they operate. But I think the important part about networking is to make sure you give as much as you receive, helping your colleagues, whether it's internal BFS colleagues, I'm abbreviating Bibby Financial Services already, or it's the wider network that we all work with, and connecting others in as well, to our relationships. And you build that trusted network, as I've done for many years now.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic.
I must say, the food at only isn't great, Alex, just to pick up on your point there.
Yeah, you can't really shove it down the broadband, can you, really?
No. It's great to hear. But Helena, can we come back to you? I'd like you to just tell us a little bit more about Bibby itself, please. What sort of businesses do you support and how do you do that?
Okay. Yeah. So we support a huge variety of businesses. So literally any sector. I can't really think of a sector that we don't support. So it can range from anything from a manufacturer to a wholesaler. Construction, we're huge in. We do loads of construction, invoice finance, care providers. There's not a sector I can think that we can't do. The main thing is that as long as that business has got a business to business invoice, so if they're dealing with the general public, for example, obviously we can't do business to consumer because there wouldn't be an invoice to fund and terms, 30-day terms. So it's any business size, from startup. So a lot of people probably don't realize that we do startup businesses, which is really important because obviously when you're starting out in business, quite often, you may not be able to get that high street bank loan or overdraft because you've got no financial accounts, you've got no trading history to sort of show how you're doing, and it's all really forecasts. So we do businesses, startups. So, it's a lot of what I do as well, startups. So again, it can be any sector, whether it's a care provider starting up, a recruiter, it's really good that we've got that to be able to offer. So again, I personally can go up to £1 million review limits on invoice finance. And once it goes over that, it goes to my corporate colleague to do anything that's higher than that. So obviously you can imagine that a lot of SMEs will fall into the bracket where I can help with up to £1 million limit. But yeah, it's literally any sector. If you're offering credit terms to your customers. So if you've supplied a product or a service and on your invoice, you're putting please pay within 30 days, for example, we can bridge that gap, basically. So what the way we do it is that if you were just, for example, doing a £1,000 invoice, instead of waiting 30 days for your customer to actually pay that invoice, we can advance up to 90% of that invoice value. So on a £1,000 invoice, obviously we'd be releasing £900. So you've got that as cash flow straight away to put back into your business, whether that means you're paying wages, suppliers, or any overheads that keep your business growing and moving on. So yeah, that's how we do it basically. But yeah, any sector from startup up to high turnover businesses.
And that's a huge lifeline, isn't it, for small business owners, startup businesses? It's hard, right? Running a business is hard, isn't it? And to have somebody there that's on your side wanting to support you, to be able to pick up the phone and talk to someone, that's a huge benefit, isn't it? So yeah, that's great. Okay, so thinking about where we've kind of gone from Helena, Alex, I'm going to come over to you. So we're talking about growth as today's theme. What are some of the specific services that you offer that can help businesses grow, whether that's at home or overseas?
So from my perspective regarding the foreign exchange, I think it's simply helping businesses firstly understand their foreign exchange exposure, and to help them grow is by simply making that as cost effective and as efficient as possible. Obviously, there's a broad variety of businesses out there offering foreign exchange. There's UK banks and throughout into the FX broker market. And many don't know that Bibby has its own foreign exchange brokerage, so it is available as a standalone facility as well as with the invoice finance facilities. But helping businesses grow is how Bibby Foreign Exchange does that, is simply by help them mitigating the risk, reducing their costs, enabling them to have greater amount of cash flow within the business. We do offer a product which means they don't have to pay a deposit when booking a forward contract. That enables to protect their margins, but actually keeping the cash flow in their business. And those we work alongside our colleagues Helena and obviously many others within Bibby Financial Services with the invoice finance clients, assisting them transact through the export finance and their invoice financing and asset finance and all the other products that BFS offers in its entirety. So it's very much offering sort of a full suite of services, very similar to a bank does, but we're not a bank. We're offering all those full facilities to help each of the SMEs of all sizes, and that's important to remind. Not just BFS in its entirety. We look after all sizes of SMEs, startup up to the very significant enterprise clients. So we can look after everyone.
I think before I hand back to James, I think I just want to touch on that point again. The business world is hard. It's changed. Customer service from banks is not what it always used to be, is it? To try and get a constant contact in a bank is near on impossible. I think people are moving to things like Revolut and the digital banks more and more, aren't they? Because they're just fed up with the lack of service that they get. So obviously dealing with you guys, family-run business, they're going to get a contact, aren't they? A port of call.
Yeah, and from my perspective, from our side, very much, and from the invoice finance side. Invoice finance has relationship managers and relationship executives within the team. So when they've started using our services, there's still someone to go and talk to. But we don't go kind of, you're set up with this, you're all done. From the FX side, there was direct access to all of our traders, a very experienced trading team. And me, of course. All my clients have my mobile number, so they can call me at any time and have already, which is why I have my phone on silent at the moment. So, it's about maintaining contact, make sure you're delivering that high level of service, which, as you say, is not always delivered, unfortunately.
It's a great point, isn't it? Banking's become quite a commodity. You never feel like your business bank is particularly on your side or there to provide anything. It's just a transactional processor, isn't it? So that is good to hear. So 40 years, I was going to say you've been doing this. You haven't. Bibby has. What other things do we need to mention that small businesses can access that they might not know about? Because there's a lot in the suite, isn't there? Things like, I know, Helena, you've talked about the startup invoice financing, but there's other stuff as well. What else do we need to mention?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to startups or any, type of business, really, there's a couple of different options as well with the invoice finance, which might be helpful when starting out in business. So we offer a product called debtor protection, which basically means if you were starting to trade with other businesses and offering terms for payment, obviously, if anything happened to that business and they failed in the time that they owe you money, then you're left with a bad debt, which especially for startup business, that might be quite difficult to trade through depending on the value of the invoice. So what we offer is an optional debtor protection product, which you can add to the invoice finance, which basically means that in the event of somebody failing on you, and they're never going to pay that invoice, the bad debt protection would pay out, which means that you wouldn't be left with a shortfall and trying to trade through that bad debt loss. So that's quite a comfort, I think, for a lot of businesses. It's, quite a lot of businesses take it. It is optional. But, it depends on your debtor book as well. Some businesses have one or two customers, and for one of them to fail can be catastrophic. In construction, quite often businesses will take it because obviously the nature of construction, we've seen some big failures in the last few years. So yeah, that's another product that's available. So if somebody was a bit worried about starting to offer terms on their invoices and products and deliveries, then there is that option to cover themselves, to protect themselves against any business failure. And just back on startups, we, do invoice finance for startups right through to, very high turnover businesses. But with the startups, we do have another product, which is exactly the same. It's factoring. It's called forward finance. But what it does is it gives them a set limit of 50,000, and it's a 28-day contract with us. So they don't need to do a 12-month contract. So that is quite popular with the smaller startups because 50,000 is normally enough, depending on their ambitions, to get them started and to be able to process invoices and get funding with us. It gives them that 28-day contract so that they can obviously cancel within 28 days with us if they no longer need it. But that is just to start them off. Obviously, if they continue to grow, we can then put them on to, it'll be the same thing, advancing money against invoices, but we can tweak it then to make sure they've got the right limit. And also, with regards to limits, I might have someone come to me on day one. It might be a startup, it might be an established business. We might set a limit of 100,000 for them to start with based on what they've got outstanding on their debtor book. But they may quickly win a new contract or new business, and they quickly need 150 or 200. So we then will work with them to increase their limit in line with the growth of their business. So I guess the flexibility of it is better than something like an overdraft, because you don't have to add additional security. We will grow with you as a business. So you're not restricted once you've hit your limit or you've had your loan and you've used all your loan up. The invoice finance is perfect for sort of growing your business because it does move with the growth of your business. And we will obviously make sure that you've got the correct limit to trade. And then again, with construction, it's a big part of what we do. It could be the difference quite often between a customer taking on a new contract with a main contractor or walking away from it. I've had so many conversations where I've had, say, for example, a ground worker business where they've said, well, we've been offered this huge contract from a main contractor for a new housing site, but we can't afford to take it on because we've got weekly wages to pay. We've got suppliers to pay on 30 days, and we're only getting paid from the main contractor on 60 days. So you've obviously got a cash flow gap there where you just can't cash flow the project. And invoice finance, that's where we step in a lot in construction because we can fund those applications for payment on the job, giving them the cash flow to pay the wages every Friday, pay suppliers. But also what some people do with the invoice finance is, of course, there is a cost to do invoice finance for having the money early. However, the profit in the jobs that the customers are doing far outweigh the cost of the invoice finance. And what some people do in particular in construction, but also other sectors, is that by having that cash early in the business account from us, that allows them to buy in bulk, for example. So again, if they were doing all the bricklaying on a construction site, they may be able to buy in bulk to be able to drive down unit prices on product. And also, some suppliers will offer discounts for settling the invoice straight away rather than having, giving their customer 30-day terms. So they'll offer a percentage discount. So there's other ways of, the buying power, I guess, it gives you as well, having the invoice finance as a customer.
Definitely. Some good stuff there, good services to learn about. We have questions from the audience.
Oh, okay.
So there, you're going to have had no prep on these, so I will flash them up on the screen. We shall do our best. So we're going to start with wonderful Simon Raybold. I'll read this out for people as I get a cough. Can you do it, Kelly?
Yeah, of course. So and then it will disappear and we can see you lovely people again. So he says, the most simple of questions, try not to laugh. No question is a simple question if you don't know the answer, Simon, but we'll go with it. I'm registered in the UK, but deliver training in Ireland a lot. They get my humour there. From my point of view, should I be invoicing in pounds or euros?
That sounds like a me question, that does.
That's like a you question, yeah.
Thank you, Simon. Great question. Never a silly question, that's for sure. And it's certainly not simple. So I think whether you should invoice in sterling or euro very much depends on your cost base. You know, how are you pricing in to begin with? If you're basing your pricing on sterling value and your customer is happy to pay in sterling, great. That means you don't have any further exposure. What Bibby Foreign Exchange is not here to do is to help you gamble with the market. It's there to protect you. So very much, if you can get paid in sterling, you're limiting your risk naturally. You're removing your risk because you're going to get paid precisely what you've invoiced. Invoicing in any other currency, there's that element of risk. It may go for you, in which you make more, but it could well go against you. We have a product which helps you protect that should the market be in your favour. But ultimately, any business is always better off invoicing in their own standard or their own currency in reality. But often, your customer in Ireland may be turning around and go, we've only got euro. They don't want to take that exposure, so they only want to pay you in euro. So what's important from your point of view, Simon, is very much to build in that element of risk and into your pricing and protect yourself at the outset once you've agreed a price. And that's how I can help you do that.
I suppose if you know you're going to take lots of payments from a particular region currency, you are best setting up a kind of permanent facility to accept payment in local currency, aren't you?
Exactly, absolutely. And obviously having a currency account with your bank is the first step in doing that. Making sure if it is non-sterling, be able to receive it in. Bibby Foreign Exchange can receive currencies on our client's behalf and pick up the phone and let them know we have your euro, and we arrange the conversion and make the payment directly into their account without further fees same day. So we can deal with that. That's not a problem. But most businesses would rather have all their funds coming in-house, if you like, with their bank. And making sure that they can see those funds and transferring to another currency as and when required. Unfortunately, when you're pricing in a different currency, there's a common mistake which is made where some businesses will just go and Google a euro rate for the day and go, oh, we use that for our invoice. If you Google an exchange rate, you're going to see what something's called mid-market, and that's what banks are buying and selling to each other at. That's not actually a tradable exchange rate. So that by working with Bibby Foreign Exchange and having a trader to speak to, or me, you can pick up the phone and say, look, I need to invoice, I'm producing a piece of business, I need to quote on it, what exchange rate should I be using to drive my sterling value for my business? What should I be using? What's a realistic rate within a given period of time? We do not own a crystal ball. No one knows what the market's going to do. But we can give you some guide. We can give you a guide and give you an idea about where to start. And then should you win that business, we can then protect that rate if the market is still at that rate, of course, because it changes every 2 seconds. So it's a rapid moving market.
And don't use this idea, by the way, Simon. Bernie is very flippant about Simon getting paid in Guinness. He has redeemed himself, though, with a good question in a minute. But we've got a LinkedIn user that Izzy tells me in the background is Oliver. So sorry, Oliver. You don't have the setting so that we can show your name on the screen. But you have asked for invoice finance and FX. Is the offering one size fits all, or are Bibby able to tailor the service to a client needs? Helena, thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as I covered earlier, we do anything from startup up to a high turnover business. Every deal has its quirk. There may be a customer that you don't want to put through the invoice finance facility for a particular reason. Again, we can work with you to look at who we're funding, and obviously we need to get limits on them as well. So we have to make sure that we get an appropriate credit limit for all the customers. But in terms of one size fits all, we can work with you, and that's where it comes in, where it's a personalised service. If it's a customer in South Wales or beyond, I can go and see them for invoice finance, and I talk to them from the outset about what they're looking to achieve, who are they looking to fund, how do they do it, how do they invoice, what do they sell. So like the startup product, that's tailored to smaller businesses where it's got a shorter contract with us for the facility. The limits are bespoke to what you need, so depending on the size of your debtor book will depend on what limit we would arrange for you. We'd always make sure that you've got enough to trade with and that you can work within the facility to start with. So it's, we cover all sorts of types of businesses and sectors, and, there's always something slightly quirky with every deal. So, I wouldn't say one size fits all, because we work with you to make sure you've got the right product and the right setup and that you've got what you need from us.
Yes. That's exactly what we wanted to hear. So great
question. I'd add on to that from the foreign exchange side of things, exactly like Helena there. Bibby Foreign Exchange looks after all sizes of clients. The popular misconception is that foreign exchange business like Bibby is only available to medium or perhaps large corporates. Not the case. I've got clients who are trading 200,000 a year up to 150 million. So it's a broad range. We're there to service all sizes of SMEs and beyond, and making sure they're getting great value along with the service.
Well, I'll flash that question up because you've just answered it. Both of you have very well. Bernie's question is about, is there things for smaller businesses with lower turnover? And that's what we're getting a really good picture of, is that there is something for everyone in a personalised way. So that was going to be my next question, actually. That,
before you go to that, sorry, just to jump in, but this is relevant to kind of what you guys have been saying. When you start up and you think, oh, I'm not at that place yet, I don't need to worry about that just yet. We're a really good prime example of that. We started to take some US dollars, then we took a few euros. Now we've got Australian dollars and we've got New Zealand, and we're now starting to get currencies everywhere. That importance of speaking to somebody early on, so that you set up in the right way, ready for when you are bigger, that you can then become, part of the system and part of the Bibby infrastructure, because that can make a big difference to a business. If you set up in the wrong way to begin with, you're going to hit a massive hurdle, aren't you, when you come to actually doing a bit more. So I think it's always worth a conversation with you guys, isn't it? It doesn't matter how big or small you are, it's the conversation.
And I think defining small, what is small? What's small to one person is not another. It's having that conversation, and perhaps the small business that comes and talks to myself or Helena turns around and we come go, not for now, but actually we'll then perhaps steer them in the right direction initially, but obviously having that contact from the start. And that's their perception of small, maybe like, no, absolutely not, we can look after you.
Yeah.
I think is ask the question, I think is the point there. Don't make any assumptions about what Bibby can help with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Leap ahead, Kelly, because we've covered the one about financing. So
definitely. So we just wondered if you've got any examples of businesses that you have supported. So maybe helping someone expand or to get over a financial hurdle. It's good for people to sort of have some case studies in it. So maybe Helena, probably more in your space.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's loads of examples, but one that in particular I would say is quite relevant is I recently did an invoice finance facility for a company that brews beer and ales and things like that, and ciders. And they were looking to expand in the UK. They're bringing out a big range of sort of 0% alcohol beers and ciders and things, which obviously is the way things are moving on now. They're quite popular, aren't they, those drinks, instead of having to have a Diet Coke whilst you're driving. Yeah. So they were looking to expand their sort of product range, really, and also exporting to Norway. So basically what we did is we went in to speak to them. I went in and had a conversation about what they were looking to do, and did an invoice finance facility to allow them to release cash against their debtor book, because they're already trading. But we released, I think it was around 80,000 against the debtor book. which allowed them then to buy more products. So, for example, they're looking to expand. So they needed more products into the business, such as buying in bulk in glass bottles to be able to bottle the product that they're making, buy in bulk for labels for the bottles, and to allow them to have more staff for production, to increase their production of beer and ales and 0% drinks. So that's made a huge difference to them to be able to expand their business in the UK and overseas. But yeah, that's kind of where we sort of come in. That's just a recent example. I could, share with you how we've helped by giving them the money whilst they're waiting to get paid from their customers, and what buying power that gives them to increase their production staff, increase their products, their actual products they need to put the beers into. And also, Alex and I had a meeting with that same customer where we worked together, because obviously with them exporting out to Norway, there's foreign exchange potential needs there. So that's where we could both help together. Obviously myself on the invoice finance and Alex discussing the foreign exchange side of things.
Absolutely. You've sort of answered my second question too, but to kind of think of that, I think a lot of people see finance as a burden rather than a boost. And it's really, you're helping people be more proactive and forward thinking in that finance space, aren't you? So that they can gain that momentum, and they can stand up against their competitors, quite frankly, because somebody else is going to get there if you don't get there, aren't they?
Absolutely. And to give an example from my side about helping a recent client, and this has happened many times, particularly with foreign exchange, many businesses are paying a deposit when they're placing a forward contract, i.e. locking in a rate today, but don't want that dollar, for example, for however long, weeks or perhaps month, they're paying a 5 or 10% deposit. So they're having to push cash flow out of their business to secure a rate to protect the profitability of that business. And accountants don't like it either. Accountants become my best friend when I say to that business, we don't need your deposit. We can give you that forward facility. We can protect your business from the foreign exchange exposure, but actually you can keep the cash, and that helps you then further fund the running of your business. That happens weekly, monthly, for all sides of the business, and that can be a startup, that can be a very significant business. It is a broad range. So if there's businesses out there who are paying deposit on their forward contract facility, come and talk to me. It's very likely you won't need to do that.
That's amazing. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Alex.
We know, don't we? So many businesses never really get over some of these growth plateaus, probably because they're adverse to getting help. They want to self-fund everything and keep growing, and then it kind of collapses in on itself. So, I mean, Helena, if we talk specifically about the invoice financing, how can it be used more as a strategic tool rather than what people might perceive that this is all just about short-term cash flow? What's the strategy thinking behind it?
Yeah, I mean, at risk of repeating myself, because obviously I've covered quite a bit in the other question, so apologies, this is a little bit repetitive, but where I've touched on, some businesses do come to us and it seems to be a short-term cash flow. They've got suppliers to pay, they've got wages going out, they're waiting to get paid on their invoices, and they've, hit a bit of a problem. So of course we do get those kind of inquiries, but more often than not, I think, short-term businesses should come to us if they're looking to take on that next project. So whether that's in construction, where they're looking at, can I finance this? If I had an invoice finance facility with Bibby, does that mean that I can then pay the staff every Friday on weekly wages? Can I pay my suppliers on time whilst I'm waiting to get paid? Again, I'm using construction as an example, but it can be the same in any type of business, whether you're a care provider waiting to get paid by local authority, a manufacturer, they've all got the same issues where they're typically offering 30-day terms. Sometimes as a business, you may have to offer 60-day terms to win that work, because that's what your customer is dictating to you. So it's, yes, we get the customers coming to us and it's a bit of a short term, can you help us quickly, and get some funds through the door. However, we also get businesses that are looking as part of their strategy on how they're going to finance their growth. And they don't want to have to put up, their house as security for the bank to enable them to have a bigger overdraft to fund the next, next work that comes in. So, we have a lot of conversations with customers where they're forward thinking and they can see a cash flow gap in their, cash flow forecast. And again, for the smaller businesses, quite often, we won't have a cash flow forecast, and that's okay. We don't have to have all these fancy spreadsheets or anything, depending on the size of your business. It can be as simple as, again, just for example, I've recently done a facility for a care provider. They have one debtor, one customer, one invoice. It was just over 20,000. And that's the first invoice we funded. So they're a startup, but they're going to be quickly invoicing 50,000 in the next month or so. So just to give you a bit of an example of the sort of range of, facilities we look at. But in terms of, what small changes can they make, I guess chasing in your debtor book and having a good routine with chasing in overdue invoices will help your cash flow. But again, at Bibby, we can do that credit control for you if you want us to. So, there's a couple of different options. And again, best thing is to speak to me probably individually off this call if you've got anything in particular, you want to have a chat about invoice finance and how I can help. But, there's lots of options. But yeah, I think speak to us early on. We can get the facility in place. And in terms of timescales, depending on the size of the business, we can typically get an invoice finance facility in place in about 2 weeks, sometimes quicker, depending on the size of the business. If it's a fairly small facility, again, we've been known to turn it around within 7 days. If it's obviously on the much bigger scale, then it can take a little bit longer, but you're looking at maybe more like 3 to 4 weeks if it is a very high limit that we're offering and there's a few more, meetings and things that we have to do. But, it's, available for all sizes of businesses. So just please come and talk to us, and we can talk to you about what the options are on funding the invoices.
That piece about credit control, I mean, that does cripple businesses because they don't like it. They don't want to face it. They kind of just leave invoices unpaid and then the cash flow's in a mess. That's a really big one, isn't it? That if you, and I can understand it's not for everyone, depending on your personality. The last thing you want to do, and it's also awkward, isn't it? When it's a client that you've got a relationship with and you're trying to work with them, then you're going, please, can you pay me? But it can create an awkward situation where you're better off having a third party involved, aren't you?
Yeah, and quite often customers, they like that part of it as well because, like you said, James, they'll have a really good relationship with their customer. They've won that business probably based on relationship. And it can be, I guess, sometimes awkward if they're sort of chasing for an invoice to be paid because it's that fine line, isn't it, between sort of upsetting their customer and getting the money back into the business. So a lot of people do, quite like the fact that it's, it's Bibby Invoice Finance chasing. So it's kind of, it's not them, I guess. And just one other point, which I've forgotten to cover, on invoice finance is that depending on the size of the business and, turnover, and what they do, we can offer a confidential invoice finance facility. So without sort of overcomplicating things, I don't want to confuse the audience or anything with the different products, but we can do invoice finance where it would show that on the invoice, please pay Bibby Financial Services. But we can also offer a confidential facility where your customers wouldn't know that we're funding the invoices behind the scenes. Again, there's so many different sort of, policies, I guess, on whether you can or can't have the confidential invoice finance facility. But it would be a case of just speaking to me to see whether that is the product that we can offer for your business. But just thought I'd cover it because I've just realized I haven't actually mentioned that. But, some businesses might not want their customers to know that they're funding their invoices behind the scenes. So again, lots of different options with us. And that's back to the question earlier about, one size fits all. We can tailor the product to suit you and to work for you and us.
Good stuff. So Alex, I think going back to foreign exchange, what common mistakes do businesses make when trading internationally? You've sort of said about, Googling the rate because that's an error, isn't it? Did that many times and it can bite you, can't it? So what common mistakes do you see?
I think one of the common ones I come across is businesses not using a budget rate, as in not deciding on whether it's monthly, quarterly, or annually, what the exchange rate they're going to base their business on. As in, are they going to be buying dollars on a regular basis? They're selling that product into the UK, so they need to decide on, okay, what's our dollar starting point? What do we need to protect at? And so that's where you can use forward contracts with that by saying, well, actually, okay, dollar's around 135 today, let's say. That's not a realistic trading figure for a 12-month or 3-month period. You just don't know what the market's going to do. But it's about using a sensible a budget rate that you kind of need to make sure you hit, ideally, and get better. but to make sure we try and avoid getting below that, because it means that any penny below that, you're reducing the profitability of that product when you're selling to the UK or beyond, of course. So that's one mistake that's commonly made. Not reviewing the foreign exchange exposure in its entirety, analysing the pricing, the cost, and the strategy. Paying a deposit on a forward contract facility, don't need to. Come to Bibby and foreign exchange, and we can help you with that. So there is kind of a number of facets. There are lots of different ways you can buy your foreign exchange. A business can do it via the bank. Traditionally, the banks are quite significantly more expensive than the foreign exchange broker market. There are between 300 and 400 FX brokers in the UK, but the vast majority will widen the spreads out when they perhaps can. And I think that's where the business can be charged significantly more than they're expecting to. With Bibby Foreign Exchange, we help them understand what their exposure is, what their volume is, and show them where their pricing will be in order to understand exactly what they're getting for their money. Obviously, then that's all backed up with service. Often, businesses will be burnt. Another mistake and I could probably go on for quite some time, but
I'll stop you when I've had enough. That's fine.
No, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but often businesses are trading at a particular point in the month. They get invoices, and at the end of the month, they go, right, and you push some buttons, we need to pay those invoices. So they're kind of making the assumption they're being organised with it, but in fact, they may be buying at exactly the wrong time. Once again, no crystal ball, so we don't know what's going to happen in the market. What we can do, we can help clients match their budget rate. We'll try and match their budget rate, assuming the market moves in their favour. But by trading a little earlier in a month to make sure we lock in advance, because what if on the date they normally buy their currency to settle their invoices, the market has gone against them and it's costing 1% or 2% more. And you might think it's not too much, 1% or 2%, does that really matter? If you're talking about significant amounts of money, that's an awful lot. You know, if you're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds for a perhaps more significant client each month, that 1 or 2% can make a big difference. So at Bibby Foreign Exchange, we help people improve the timing through conversation, regular market updates, as much or as little as the client wants, direct access to the trader, talking to professionals that really understand the market and can react quickly. So should something happen, so we know if a client needs to buy or sell a currency, we can very quickly react with various products, which I won't go into now, that can capture a market where they need it to be captured. And we can pick up the phone and just tell them this is what's happening right now, and to help them either gain a better rate or avoid getting a worse rate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Alex, another question for you. So since Brexit and with the introduction of traffic to the US, are business owners more cautious about trading overseas now, do you think? And if so, what are they missing?
Jump in there, because you've read that verbatim and it's my fault, because it shouldn't say the introduction of traffic, it should say tariffs. So I do apologise.
I wonder, but you're the journalist, so I thought I'll go with it. This is something I don't understand. So with Brexit and the introduction of tariffs in the US, people more cautious now about trading overseas?
I think what's happening is it's making the markets far more volatile. I mean, unpredictable situations and politicians commenting and making changes on a regular basis. It's not helping businesses plan their FX trading, helping them we help them the best way we can. But if a politician is going to say something which is completely out of the blue, which moves the market significantly, which it has, we have no idea that's going to happen. So it's made it a little more exciting for businesses, and some are making more money because they're actually better lock in those dollars, and they price it at 130 and they get 134, 135, thinking, great, okay, I'm getting much more for my sterling at the moment. But unfortunately, those businesses who have exported, who are bringing that dollar in or any other currency in, and that's actually costing them more to sell that dollar back to sterling. So it's actually affecting their profit margins. So it's not stopping businesses from importing and exporting. It's not stopping it. It's still happening. Obviously, significant volume. No doubt volumes will have been reduced. But the reality, it's made it more challenging from our perspective about the guidance we can give our clients and information we can give our clients to make those decisions. But we're about protecting your business. So when we hit that budget rate or above, that's when we want to be trying letting clients know it's where you need to be, and using the products that we have to protect them as best we can. But yeah, who knows what's going to happen next? It is a bit of finger in the air time for everyone, really. But those businesses will protect themselves the best they can. At least they're mitigating that risk as much as possible against further comments made and changes, tariffs in particular, and many other global things that affect the markets constantly. Obviously, we're all aware of.
And that's
does
your
it
phone
create
with phone calls.
Yeah.
Because people want your crystal ball and they want to know what it is that's going to happen.
But often a client just wants to have a conversation about, I'm thinking about this, what do you think I should be doing? By just having that conversation with myself or one of their trader, but just have that conversation about their specific scenario and helping them understand their risk, what they could and can't do, what they perhaps should and shouldn't do. And often given that finance director, MD, CFO, that peace of mind to go, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. Having someone to talk it through with, to make that informed decision as best we can with the information that's there. I sound like a politician. From all the information that's provided, the data that's provided, we can make this assumption. But that's all we can do. Yeah. If I knew what was going to happen in the market, I wouldn't be here. I'd have been a yacht in the Caribbean. So, I wish I did.
The main thing is there's still huge opportunities, isn't there? And I think that as more people kind of go, well, I'm not going to do it, that means there's opportunity for people to be brave and kind of, there may be slightly less competition than there might be in a more buoyant market. It swings and roundabouts, isn't it? There's always an opportunity to kind of go against the trend, I suppose, isn't there?
And with that, by talking to Bibby, the due to the reach of Bibby throughout the UK, the amount of connections that all of my Bibby colleagues do have in all different types of sectors, we may not be able to help, but we'll go, but I know someone you can talk to. We've got strong connections to chambers throughout the UK for all of our individual relationships by putting people into the right environment, the right connection to better assist them with that and importing that, exporting a product perhaps that Bibby doesn't offer. But by guiding our clients, that's how Bibby operates, through a partnership. And when we can help someone, we will, and we'll deliver.
That sort of brings us full circle, doesn't it? The conversational bit. Helena, networking, why is it so important for helping you grow into new regions, new industries, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I touched on networking earlier, James. I go to a range of them, from breakfast meetings to evening events to awards nights, shows, just to sort of cover exactly what Bibby do. And Alex has joined me on some of those. But yeah, it's super important because, you don't know who you're going to talk to at any event, and a lot of people are so well connected that, it might be that you're talking to somebody that knows somebody else that wants invoice finance, or somebody that wants foreign exchange, somebody wants asset finance. We do asset finance as well, which is another one of my colleagues that covers that. But it's just massively important to get, one, for us, brand awareness out there. I mean, I particularly cover South Wales, and, for me to grow my business, working for Bibby, and grow the number of facilities that I do, it's just crucial for me to get to know as many professionals, finance professionals. It can be anything from an accountant, solicitor, finance broker that introduces to us, but also we get a lot of customer referrals, which is lovely. I might do a facility for a customer and they'll speak to some of their connections in the industry, and they pass on my details. So I also am lucky enough to grow my business through referrals from other customers as well. So, networking is critical, I think, to growing your business as well, not just in what Alex and I do in Bibby. Whatever your business is, get yourselves to networking events, because there's always a range of people that attend these events that are well connected, and it just grows your network and your potential customer future base.
Love that. Any final thoughts on networking, Alex? Obviously, us as an online network, we're into the States, across the UK. That can be quite powerful, can't it? To get, because the regionalised stuff that you're talking about, Helena, massively important. The online component really does give you that range as well if you do it right.
Yeah. And to echo Helena's point about you don't know who you're going to talk to, so the only networking community is a prime example. You don't know who you're going to talk to. You don't know who their husband, wife, friend does. I was at actually a networking event recently, asked the young lady what she did, and she rented out office space. And I was chatting about networking, what sort of things you do, and I shared that. She thought I'd be interested. I shared that with her, so she knows where I go to, because I always happily share what I do. And I made a point of saying, for all I know, your dad could be the CEO of a significant business. And she turned around to me, he is actually. And so it was a perfect example, live there and then. And we laughed about it. You just don't know who you're talking to. For me, networking, often many people, I'll start again, often people look at networking as, where can I go and sell? Where can I go and get my next client? I need to go and get a client from this networking event because it costs me this in financially or in time. That's often the mistake that's made. For me, it's about going, I'm going to go and meet a ton of people. I hope we can all get on. We're going to have a great time and share what we do. For me, when we get someone whose synergy fits, and you kind of go, right, how can we help each other? And the important thing to do with networking is first to go, how can I help you? And I've lost count how many times that's worked. But we go, actually, yeah, I'd like to meet someone in this space, in that space. What networking you do in this area? Oh, I'll go to this. Come along. I introduce you in. And by sharing people that are suitable and appropriate at the right time, generally speaking, that encourages that other person to go, kind of owe them that. I need to reciprocate. I need to make sure I introduce them. And that will generate that conversation. 99% of the time, when I've said, I can do this for you, I can do that for you, they'll go, what do you need? And I'll explain what I need and who I want to talk to. And they'll go, oh, I know someone who does that. I'll email them in. I'll bring them onto my event. For me, that's the best way of networking, and not going to go, right, I'm going to dish out some business cards. No. For me, business cards are in my pocket. If someone then asks me for one or says we should catch up, that's when the business card comes out. I'm not in the habit of going collecting a ton of business cards at networking events. For me, that's pointless. It's about the conversation and building that relationship and making sure you're enhancing that by helping as best you can. And most people will help you in return.
Fantastic. Great sentiments. Final thoughts then, call to action. So if the audience listening want help with foreign exchange or the financing side of things, what's the call to action? What should they do?
Go on, Helena.
Should I go first, Alex? Right. Yeah. I mean, if anyone's listening on the call today that's interested now in invoice finance, and actually you've thought, you know what, that can help my business, then please give me a call. James, I don't know, I assume our details are shared, our mobile numbers and email addresses with the audience. So yeah, even if you're not in South Wales, I'm very happy to hear from you, and I can speak to you about the invoice finance and arrange things from there. So yeah, call to action is, if you're not sure on anything I've covered, really happy to talk to anyone on this call. It doesn't matter what size business you are, whether you're starting up or you're thinking of starting up, just, I'm happy to help. So just please get in contact on the invoice finance side of things for me.
Alex?
Likewise for me, really. Connect with me on LinkedIn. My details will be shared, but do connect me on LinkedIn. Ask the question and I will help. If you have a foreign exchange exposure and not looked at it in the last 3 to 6 months, you should certainly look at it, and we can have that conversation. I can complete that analysis very quickly and easily to give you an idea about what it's actually costing and perhaps a better way of operating. If you've got a great deal, I'll say congratulations, you've got a great deal, you shouldn't change a thing. That's rare, but I will say that if necessary, because occasionally client got a great deal and it works within their systems, great, don't change it, stay as you are. But I think really for people to come to me to talk to me about the foreign exchange exposure, if you have accountants and finance brokers that would like to have the conversation to me, if they're on the call, please do get in touch. Because if you're not talking to your clients about their foreign exchange exposure, either someone else is, and perhaps not doing a job that perhaps as well as it could be, or no one's looked at it at all, and that may be costing them significantly more than it should be.
Fantastic. Well, there is a specific link. It's appearing on the screen. It will be in the comments. It will be wherever you're watching or listening to this. You'll find the link in the chat if you want to learn about Bibby, or indeed you've had an open invite there. If you want to connect with Helena or Alex directly, you can do that on LinkedIn too. So fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much, both of you, not just for appearing and joining us and giving us your time today, but also sponsoring our show. We're really grateful and appreciative. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as always. Thank you.
Thanks for having us today. We've enjoyed it, and I really hope your audience have as well. And yeah, please get in contact. Any questions after the show?
Of course.
Superb.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Helena. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for watching. This has been Adventures in Networking. We'll see you again next month.